I was very disappointed to find that my peers and professors were very pro-abortion. Though I was enjoying learning all of this interesting stuff about fetal development and thinking, wow, this is great. This totally aligns with my pro-life values. It seemed that they kind of threw that all out the window. When we started talking about abortion, it was assumed that everyone was pro-abortion. Hello, welcome to ProLife Brand,
where we share our ideas to create a unifying visual identity for the pro-life movement.
This is Kate Yep, along with my husband,
Kai Yep. And our baby too. Hello, and welcome back to a new episode of ProLife Brand. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Kate's experience getting her master's degree in public health, some of the things she learned along the way, and how apparently pro-abortion the academic world seems to be. So why don't you state the specific program and you know the whole thing.
Okay. Well, my master's degree is a master's of public health in maternal and child health and epidemiology.
That's still a mouthful for me.
Yeah.
So how did you decide to study in public health?
Yeah. So my undergrad degree was in physiology, and I loved learning about the body and being in the sciences and also focusing on people. But along the way, I decided not to go into clinical medicine, so I thought public health might be a good fit. And I took a couple public health classes in my undergrad, and I fell in love with it. After my undergrad program, I went into a position with WIC, which stands for Women, Infants, and Children, and it's a national nutrition program. So I was able to counsel families in proper nutrition for their children, and I learned a lot about breastfeeding as well, and I just loved that population of maternal and infant health. So I decided to continue down that road and get a master's at University of Illinois at Chicago, because they have a public health program that has this maternal and child health concentration.
Mm-hmm. So I still think that with the realm of public health is not super clear to me, and probably for a lot of people that's the same. Maybe the pandemic has exposed us to what public health is, but why don't you explain that a little further?
Sure. So public health has to do with looking at all of the factors that influence our health. So not only our what happens inside of our body, but also our environment and the people we interact with and how those types of factors impact our health as well. So the goal of public health is to create an environment in which people have the opportunity to thrive. So some people in public health might go into a policy realm. Some other people might go down into research, which is what I did. Others might go into more of practice, where they're implementing health programs at a community level or something like that.
And what about the concentration you chose?
So I looked at maternal and child health, and I learned a lot about, the research that we have behind those populations, and something that I loved learning about was fetal development. So there's a couple studies in particular that I found absolutely fascinating that help kind of explain this idea of life course theory. So life course theory talks about how our health is a continuum throughout our lives, and it begins at conception, honestly. And so because some studies have shown that our exposures to different things in utero, in the womb, can impact our health into our adult years. So one of the more interesting studies that I learned about was the Dutch famine that happened in 1944, 1945. in which they found that babies in the womb during that famine had a much higher risk for obesity in their adult years. I don't totally know why it went from famine to being obese, but it has to do with epigenetics and how our genes can be triggered by different experiences like famine, which is very severe. So our genes can be triggered in different ways, and that's what happened in this cohort of people.
So that specific generation of babies that were in utero in those years experiencing famine, whose moms were experiencing famine, then they were more likely to be obese
Later in life, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Another example is a study that found very high levels of arsenic in drinking water. And so pregnant women who had this water that they were exposed to had high rates of stillbirths. And so we look at these things in public health and think, what can we do about this? What are modifiable factors that can prevent these negative health outcomes? So we want to remove those harmful exposures, and that's why we tell pregnant women, like, don't drink while you're pregnant, or don't smoke while you're pregnant. And there's, things you might have to modify in your habits to protect not only your own health, but the health of your baby too. So that's what I found really interesting in my program.
Right. So those recommendations for pregnant women that help protect the baby come from the realm of public health, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how you've mentioned before pro-abortion public health professionals seem to be. So can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yes. I was very disappointed to find that my peers and professors were very pro-abortion. It seemed that though I was enjoying learning all of this interesting stuff about fetal development and thinking, wow, this is great, this totally aligns with my pro-life values, seeing how life is a continuum and this moment of our lives really matters, it seemed that they kind of threw that all out the window. And when we started talking about abortion, it was assumed that everyone was pro-abortion, and in the name of, women's rights and women's health. And what I found was that they completely devalued and dehumanized, or just didn't even talk about the fetal life, the human growing in the womb. They would make claims like they would refer to it as a pregnancy, and only focus on the mother, and whatever she wanted was what mattered most.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they don't even think that the baby in the womb will be eventually a grown-up woman. They don't even see that as a person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What examples do you have about this rejection of the pro-life values or the staunch pro-abortion ideas?
Well, I had various peers who actually actively worked in the abortion industry, and I would have conversations with a couple of them about how I viewed fetal life as valuable, and that we should treat all human lives as worth living and treat them with dignity. But their take was that human in utero was not as important as an adult human. So that's how I saw that play out among my peers. And then also in the wake of the Roe v. Wade decision, the school put out a couple statements about that. So one I'm going to read is from the UIC nursing. So their statement is, In the week of the June 24 decision of the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, the UIC College of Nursing reaffirms its commitment to safe, skilled, accessible health care, including abortion. In our home state of Illinois, abortion care remains protected. And then there was also this student group called the Collaboratory for Health Justice that published a similar statement along with one of my former professors, and they said, abortion is fundamental health care. It is safe, it is necessary, and it saves lives. When I read that, I was like, what? It saves lives? It destroys lives.
So let me read this again. Abortion is fundamental healthcare. Okay, so that's clearly wrong because it's not even fundamental, and it is not healthcare. It is safe. Well, it isn't. It isn't for the baby, and it isn't for the mother many times. Not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually, right? It's not safe. Then it says it is necessary, which it isn't. Killing a baby is never necessary, and then it says it saves lives. Yeah, that's the worst. It's exactly, every single statement here is exactly the opposite of the truth. Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, so that was very disappointing to see, but that is unfortunately the landscape of the academic world that I encountered.
So I imagine some people watching this might be in a similar situation, if not in the realm of public health. There's so many other ones where people or the professors, the industry is already leaning in this direction of pro-abortion. So what would you say to people in a similar situation?
I think I would say to just be firm in your pro-life values, to come to the table and ask them questions that makes them think about the life in the womb and how all human lives matter. And, we really need more pro-life people in this industry to try to change the current and change the thinking so that we can really value all human life and promote healthy pregnancies, help support women who are in crisis, and figure out ways that we can support families that are going through difficult times so that we don't just say well, the answer here is abortion.
Right.
That should never be the result. That shouldn't be an option. And so I think we need more people who are willing to enter into this space, have those hard conversations, and help figure out how can we change this to really support a holistic health of mothers, infants, and families.
Yeah, that's so interesting how when you explain public health as not only focusing on the person and what happens inside their bodies, but also the whole context. It seems that in the topic of abortion that goes away because if a woman is considering abortion, probably is a lot of the context that is not helping her think of keeping the baby. But then where does that go, right?
Yeah.
The support that public health is supposed to offer in a way. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Yep, that's how I found it quite hypocritical, the things I was learning and then the stance that they have taken in terms of abortion. So, yeah.
I think you told me once you had an interesting and probably productive conversation with a classmate who was proactively working in the abortion industry. And I think that gave me some hope of people are probably more willing that we give them credit for to engage in these conversations. So
yeah, I do think that engaging in conversations with people, particularly in person, can be helpful, where I was able to see her perspective in that, she just did not value fetal life as equally important as an adult life. And she really felt she was helping women. But I think she was able to see in talking with me that regardless of age or stage of development, all life should be valued. And so I think that it is important to try to navigate these difficult conversations and help us try to, talk the same language. And I do believe that there's hope going forward, but sometimes it is daunting when all your peers and professors seem to be on one side of the token and are sometimes even proactively trying to shut down any arguments or questions on the other side. Like, as a pro-life student, I tried to ask questions that they felt uncomfortable with and just said, we're not going to be talking about the ethics of abortion in this lecture. And the lecture was all about abortion. And so, yeah, we just need more people to join in and change this current.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode. If you liked it, please give us the thumbs up and subscribe. And if you like this kind of content, please let us know in the comments. Don't forget to follow us in Instagram, Facebook, and yes, also TikTok, and now YouTube with these videos. So if you have more questions, if you're interested in the project, go to prolifebrand.com and you'll find more about our background and our project. And until the next one, thanks.